Hello, BookTube. I wanted to make a video irritatedly talking about comic books. So those of you who've seen the title or who are hearing this moment will know whether or not you want to continue. I admit completely, this is nothing to do with books. This is just something I want to get off my chest, and I'm used to doing that with BookTube now. The Yesterday was Thanksgiving here in the United States, and towards the end of the day, a bunch of the young people that I hang out with suggested that we all go to a movie. That we all go to a movie theater and see a movie. They wanted to see the Justice League, and I was debating back and forth about it, and eventually I thought, well, it would mean leaving my little dog in order to enjoy myself. It would mean leaving her to just make the best you can of it. Well, I'll be back when I'm done enjoying myself. That didn't seem right. It seemed a little selfish. Maybe just because she's so young. I don't want it to bother her. So I proposed an alternate solution, which is that one of these boys has an iPad Pro, which is the much bigger iPad, and it's a really excellent screen. It's just fine, and I have a screener of Justice League that I've had here for weeks and I haven't looked at it, and I suggested that we play that we somehow manage to play the screener for Justice League on his iPad Pro here at Hyde Cottage, so that everybody's happy. We're not dealing with rude people. We're not paying through the nose, and we're not leaving my dog. So that's what we did. We all got together, and it was a fun time. It was a very fun time. And Justice League, which I'm ashamed to say I had not seen it. I have a friend who works in Hollywood and has forever, and sent me a screener wanting to know what I thought. Said, there's no bigger Justice League fan than you are. If this movie doesn't please you, I'd like to know about it. And I hadn't watched it, so I felt a little guilty, and I didn't know what to think, because the DC Universe movies that I have seen so far, with the conspicuous exception of Wonder Woman, have been universally disappointing, grim, lens-flary, somber, funereal experiences that don't have any grandeur and no heroism. Who needs that? Who needs that multiple times over? But I was very pleasantly surprised. Justice League is wonderful. It's got humor and pathos. The characters are all on point in their own continuity. No one steps out of character. The character of Aquaman and the character of the Flash are totally new. That never existed in DC Comics before. They were unrecognizable to me, but they were done perfectly consistently and by two talented actors. So I didn't mind at all. And I love the ending. I'm sure I'm not spoiling anything for any of you when I say that. That Superman returns. Superman comes back to life, and there's a scene, probably inevitable, at the end of the movie where the resurrected Superman is having amnesia. He momentarily does not remember who he is or who anybody else is, and attacks the Justice League, and they fight. And that was the only part of the movie that disappointed me. Unlike, for instance, Thor Ragnarok, where there were huge amounts of things in the movie that disappointed me. That fight was the only part of the movie that disappointed me, and only because I would like to think that no one is threatened and no continuity is upset if we finally get past the point where Superman is easily more powerful himself than the whole rest of the Justice League combined. That has always driven me crazy. That drove me crazy 50 years ago when it was the standard line in comic books, and it still does. Superman should not be faster than the Flash, and I don't see that there's any good reason why he should be stronger than Wonder Woman, much less easily stronger than Wonder Woman. I understand in the context of the movie when the fight is happening. It doesn't last long. It's just a minute. It's not meant to be definitive of anything. In the context of the movie, of course, Wonder Woman is not trying to hurt Superman, and he is trying to hurt her. So there's an unequalness there, but there's a clear indication. It's clearly implied that she's nowhere near as strong as he is. And I don't like that, and I don't see the point of it. But otherwise, the movie was incredibly good. And believe it or not, I found a way to be irritated about that. Because once I'd seen the movie, I went back and looked at all of the reviews online, on YouTube. And the Rotten Tomatoes score, which is done by nerds. The Rotten Tomatoes score is totally different from the audience exit score for the movie. Audience exit score for the movie is enormously high. The Rotten Tomatoes score for the movie is literally half that, because it's done by nerds. And as I was watching the YouTube videos talking about the Justice League and what a train wreck it is, and how horrible it is, and is there any way that DC can recover from this, a movie that I just seen and loved, and that, you know, not one of the people making these videos knows anything more about the Justice League than I do. As I was watching those videos, I grew more and more irritated. Not with the movie, and because these people weren't pointing out any flaws that I had missed, but with those people, with fans, with comic fans. And it reminded me of something that's been going on in the comic book corner of YouTube that those of you who don't watch won't have any idea what I'm talking about. There's been a kind of a comic book version of Gamergate going on in the comic book world of YouTube. A small handful of maybe 10 YouTube channels of griping, disaffected fans, all ex-military, all men, all of a certain age, all with respiratory problems, and all of whom want to see bigger boobs on female superheroes. And they say that what the code word they have for that is they just want good stories. But if the stories don't include that, they're not on board. So it doesn't. That is what they want to watch. And as I've been watching their channels, their content has increasingly infuriated me because, separate from the Justice League, the more I watched their channels, the more I thought, this is a group of people who will not be happy with anything. They're not talking about comic books here. They're talking about their own past. They want to go back to their own past. They want to turn the clock back to the mindless racism and sexism of their high school days and just leave it that way. And that's not going to happen, and it shouldn't happen. And the more I watched these videos, the more irritated I got. That really that is their criteria, and which was brought to the fore for me just recently. The editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, Axel Alonso, who's done a lot of really dumb work for the company, was given the boot, and a new editor-in-chief was named. It was not the next person in the chain of command. It was someone else. It was someone from another division of Marvel Comics. And this is what these comic skaters had been calling for forever. They'd been saying, this guy's got to go. He's ruining our hobby, is what they love to call it. These people, these ridiculous hypocrites who will scruple at saying, oh my God. They say, oh my gosh, instead. But they were perfectly happy to blow the heads off civilians in Afghanistan. But they don't want to say, oh my God. They say, oh my gosh, instead. Absolutely ridiculous theater. But when I saw that Axel Alonso had gotten the boot, I thought, okay, there you go. That's a clear win. That's what you people wanted, and you got it. So now your reactions will determine what you're made of. And what were their reactions? They all made videos. All 10 of them made videos saying that this is a guy, C.B. Cebulski. All they had was the press release photo of him. A cheerful guy, beard, glasses. And that's all they had. They didn't know anything about him. No comic book fan knows anything about him. And every single one of the 10 of them said, yeah, well, I'm not going to judge him ahead of time. I think we should give him the benefit of the doubt. Looks kind of like a soy boy cuck. I wanted to write in their comments field. Of course, the comments field is all hoorah. It's all their acolytes. I wanted to write in the comments field, if you're looking at someone's headshot and calling them a soy boy cuck, all these code words you use, purse puppy, fedora tipper, white knight, caping. If you look at somebody's face on a photo and say, yeah, it looks like a soy boy cuck, you're not giving him the benefit of the doubt. You are professionally disillusioned. And I sort of wrote them off when I saw that reaction, because it means there's nothing that will please them. And that was on my mind when I saw the Justice League and then came to look at all the reviews, that there's nothing that will please comic book fans. If that Justice League movie won't please you, then nothing will. And and yet there isn't a single that I know of, a single YouTube movie reviewer, especially science fiction fantasy movie reviewer, who liked it, or even a little. so, so that's my little extra rant here, is that whole experience ended up being pretty frustrating. Not in the moment. I had a wonderful time with the boys watching Justice League. They loved all the really great beats. I thought that a lot of the really great beats were wonderful too. I thought a lot of the special effects were very interesting. My main problem with the movie myself is very small, because the movie I thought was tremendously effective. My main problem with the movie is I don't see why all the characters were limited the way they were, except for Superman. That didn't seem to make much sense to me. If you're going, for instance, to make Aquaman so formidable, why not go all the way? Why have him in his own field of expertise dealing with out-of-control water? Why have him encounter limitations? Why? When you're not going to do that elsewhere? Why? Well, anyway, anyway, that can be fixed. And for all I know, I've heard all sorts of talk that, including from my friend in Hollywood, that this movie was butchered in post-production, and that an extended version, the Blu-ray version or the director's cut or whatever, will substantially change it. And looking back on the movie, I could almost see that would be true. So who knows what we'll see? And Justice League 2 could easily amp the power levels of people involved. The main one I want to see that for is Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman should be relatively as strong as Superman. She should not be a third as strong as Superman. She should be relatively as strong as Superman. I don't see that anybody loses by that, especially when we have the best Wonder Woman imaginable. And I say that with a degree of pathos, since I grew up with a Wonder Woman who was very good. but I don't understand, if we've got a cinematic Wonder Woman who's got the chops to be a major hero, why back down at the last minute and have her and signal to your largely Asian audience, well, she's very strong, but don't worry, she's not as strong as the man. That anyway. That was my rant. Mainly just to take aim at comic book fans, and I am one myself, so it feels kind of weird. But comic book fans who are just professionally dissatisfied, and who didn't like Justice League and have voted it down everywhere they can, everywhere from Rotten Tomatoes to Reddit, even though it's a fine movie. so there you go. So a little digression of a rant. I'll get back to books immediately. Don't you worry. Thank you, BookTube.